Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. Also stories about the crazy stuff that happened while I was in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison, you won't have to make some of the same mistakes I made. So before we start, D. Lewis and Terry Lee, thank you guys both for donating to the Junkie with a Monkey Fund that will either go into buying a monkey or more likely in recent future just to do interviews with people that are still in prison over the phone or to meet them in person. I think I'm off federal probation. I'm not quite sure. I'm still doing everything accordingly as if I am. But it's been 5 years. I should be off. Once I get confirmation with that, I can do this other stuff that I'm talking about. Because there's a whole thing with consorting with felons and stuff like that. So I have been extra careful. I have not broken one rule. So as soon as I get confirmation of that, I will be doing interviews with a lot of very interesting people. One in particular, Kingpin from Philly. Another did 17 years in prison. Best leather worker I've ever seen in my life. Best artist I've ever seen in my life. He'd never used a cell phone in his life until he got out of prison. And then, right when he gets out of prison is when this whole virus shutdown stuff happened. Imagine getting out of prison after 17 years and all this crazy stuff happening. Anyways, to you guys, I believe Terry Lee donated 10 twice. So to D. Lewis and Terry Lee, thank you so much. I appreciate you. It will go into making this better. Anything that's donated is going to go to making this better. I'm going to tell you that right now. So anyway, excuse me. This is about when I did the year in jail. So I'd done a couple months here and there, but then I did a little over a year straight before making bond for 2 years and then going to prison. So this is in that year time. When I first got there, I was... The 6 months before I ended up getting locked up, I'd quit selling drugs. I was still using. I let a dealer move in with me. In exchange for a room, I got drugs on a daily basis. And I got junked out. Just keeping it real, I was gutter. I kept it gutter like ODB. It was gutter as could be. Like just simple life skills, taking care of myself and things like that. Oh, they all just went out the window. So when I first got to this jail, you know, I'm the youngest person in there. The average person in there is probably 40 or so, and I'm just like fish out of water. I'd been to jail before, but like this is the worst shape I'd ever been in my life. I've got another story. I think I went to jail 12 years ago today. Somebody had asked about it. It's about how I basically tricked the jail into thinking I was having some type of Xanny withdrawals or something, so they hit me with an IV and kept me doped up for 5 or 6 days. So I bypassed the withdrawal. I've come off of it many, many times. But that was the big one, and I kind of bypassed it. They knocked me up with Halidol, and that just went, but anyway, 12 years ago today, I went to jail, believes the story. So, I'd been in jail for a bit. I ended up cellmates with this dude who called himself, it was like right when Jersey Shore hit, he'd been called Snooky before that, so it wasn't like weird for a dude to be called Snooky at this point. Any of this saying, I'm Snooky, not a rookie. That's what they call me, Snooky, not a rookie. Light-skinned black dude from Franklin County, funny as could be. But, you know, had all these little corny sayings and stuff like that. We got along great. We was in the handicap cell up top. It's about 12 by 12 foot, so there's a lot of room to move around in there. But one day, he bought extra eggs. See, people buy stuff off each other's trays. He bought extra boiled eggs. And he tried to flush the shells down the toilet, which ultimately clogged the frickin' toilet up. So then they forced us to leave because, man, it's going to be a while before the toilet can get fixed. So we had to go. He moved in with his buddy Brandon, who's also from Franklin County. And there's this dude downstairs who I'd talked to a good bit. And, you know, just out of the choices that I had available, this guy was into working out. I'd asked him about certain stuff a handful of times. And, you know, he'd actually asked me to be his celly, but he seemed kind of like a grumpy prick. So I passed on it. But then I ended up asking him, hey, dude, you mind if I move in? He was like, yeah, it's cool. So I moved in with him. And I can tell you about this dude. He was probably about 6'1", 220 to 230 pounds. all he did was work out. Now, he had these tiny little calves like that Johnny Bravo. That's a common theme you saw in prison. People with these tiny little legs and, you know, big upper bodies at prison build. But he always worked out all day, every day. He had a giant pentagram tattooed on his back and these other tattoos, kind of like Aryan related and stuff. I can't remember what it was exactly, like Aryan Circle. So it wasn't Brotherhood, but like he was a part of something, you know. I can't remember the exact group or whatever. And I asked him a lot about, you know, prison, because I knew I was going to end up going to prison, that this wasn't something I was going to slide by with federal charges. So got a lot of information from him about that. But this dude was the first person that made me realize that gambling is being a gambling addict, that's a real disease. Okay? This dude was absolutely a degenerate gambler. And he'd be on the poker table just looking angry all the time. Every once in a while, but he just mad at everybody, mad at life. And to be honest now, looking back at it, he was one of those type of people that it was everybody else's fault. It was never his fault. And, you know, that type of mentality. But his whole justification with losing was, well, you got to have enough money to make it through the losses so then you can come back and win in the end. Okay, first off, that's a lot of the time in jail games, people will have buddies. People are cheating all the time. I never got into, you know, Texas Hold'em, stuff like that, but that was the game, and there were more fights that happened out of that anyway. Gambling, I never got into it, but one day he got me to gamble with this guy who was had a head injury from getting beat with the baseball bat. He's actually a really nice dude, though. You could tell, you heard stories about how he was before his head injury. Not my Celly, but this other guy. And he's like, you should take it. You'll win it. And it was like a candy bar, I bet him. But the whole game, I felt sick. Thinking, the guy came up, he's like, I know they're probably going to lose, but, you know, it's something to do. So I figure, you know, if you want to bet on this one. And my Celly was like, yeah, you should take it. You're going to win this one. I ended up winning, but the whole time I got thinking, that was a candy bar I probably could have eaten. What if I lose? I didn't get the rush, the excitement, all that stuff out of it. Now, I ended up working out with him during this time. I talked about Red, who I worked out with before, who was, that was a good dude, man. He ended up doing 17 years, his third cocaine distribution. But I ended up working out with him, and he, like everything, he knew a good bit, and that's half what we talked about. You were locked in at the Western Virginia Regional Jail. They lock you in. It depends on the guard and everything else. They just keep you locked in because they're too lazy to let you out and watch her, everything else. And some of them would like literally do stuff just to mess with you. Like, you couldn't turn the lights on in your room. They could either press the switch and turn all the lights on or all the lights off. Like, so some of them would turn the lights on, you know, at nighttime just to mess with you and stuff like that. So being stuck in the cell, ended up working out a whole bunch. We ended up making punching mitts out of 2 toilet paper rolls and socks. So stuffed 2 toilet paper rolls together, and we just did the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, just jab, cross, jab, cross, jab, cross. No, wasn't going to become, you know, like an expert boxer, but I figured I can get down a jab cross pretty good, you know, just doing this. And we did that every day. Every day. After every meal, you got locked down for like an hour and a half there. So during that hour and a half lockdown, usually at 1 in the evening, that's when we would do that. We'd do that every day for the longest time. We lifted, a lot of the times what we lifted was water bottle or soda that were empty. We'd fill with water, tie a sheet around, and we'd lift that. Now, he was always grumpy, like about everything. You know, I make just about anybody laugh, so I kept him cutting up a little bit too. But when you have somebody that's a negative person, that stuff's contagious, man. Like, whenever somebody is negative and something, God forbid, you do end up in prison, your cellmate completely determines how your time's going to go. If you've got somebody you're cool with that's like somebody you could see yourself being friends with outside of prison, then that's somebody that can make the time go by quick, because y'all just be cutting up, you know. But if you got somebody that's constantly negative about every single thing, but even then, you know, I kind of like, I'm always cutting up and I'm always happy. Like what y'all see on here with how I am, like I try to be like this. Like even if something's negative, I try to find the positive in it. Because I mean, what's it going to do sitting around moping, you know? So what I told him was, I told him the first cellmate I had when I was in there, I ended up moving out of his cell because this guy would just, he'd find a way to crack at anybody. Like these little passive aggressive cracks. I couldn't be around that dude. Well, that dude ended up coming down in the cell. And it made me proud of him. My cell with the pentagram. I'm just gonna call him Darkness, okay? Because he was like talking about satanic shit. Excuse me, don't mean to cuss. One slip there. Satanic stuff and everything else. So Darkness, this guy came down there, country guy, and he looked at him. He said, "Look at you. You done got fatter than a bullfrog." And he said, "Man, stop that." He said, "You're always negative. You're always negative. You always want to say something negative. We're keeping it positive here. You can go ahead and leave." And he's like, "What?" And he said, "You heard me. You're going to say negative stuff. You can get on out of here." So by the end of it, I got him to where he was thinking a little more positive at least. But he became, I mean, he was my friend. I got to say that. But like just those people that are constantly negative, man, I can't tell you. Like if you're stuck living with somebody like that, I mean, it's like a tension in the air just because they're negative energy. I don't know how to explain it. Something crazy this dude did. He had some cool stuff, you know. One of the things that he did that was wild, you know, he's out. I'm sure nobody else done it. Nobody's going to find this or look for this anyway. And, you know, there's always some person that's like, "You're telling too much. You're going to let the guards know about something. You're giving up the game." Do you think there's anything that I can tell you that they have not found 10 times over, okay? There's zero. There's nothing I can tell you that they hadn't found. And, you know, so for all those people that want to, you know, sit there and cry and complain about that, whatever. And so what he had done was they pass out razors in the morning. If you want to shave, you got to get up at 5 o'clock and stay up at 5 o'clock. After people eat breakfast, that's when they pass them out. So if you want to shave, you got to stay up. And then you're already up. It's hard to fall back asleep. So he got a razor that they did not end up collecting back one day. And they missed it. But you got to hide it because they search this place pretty frequently. He put a piece of notebook, like a piece of white paper. There's a light that comes down, like a rectangular light that comes down about that far. He taped it up against the light. They never found it. And it was just so he could shave in the evening. I mean, it wasn't nothing bad, nothing crazy about that. But something I learned today, he ended up getting a staph infection. He swore he had staph, and I'm like, "Man, you're crazy." You know, I thought he was thinking stuff up, but he kept claiming he had it in his arm and he could feel it, like there was a ball in his arm, like. And I didn't know the contagiousness of staph, MRSA, like being in the air and stuff like that, which I guess now look back on, it's a dangerous type of situation. But anyway, he told me, he said, "Man, go ahead, do what you need to do. If you need to use the bathroom or something, go ahead, get out of the way. I'm going to be in here. I'm going to get this thing out of my arm." I'm like, okay. So I stayed out of the cell for about an hour and a half. He took the bathroom sign down. I went back in and like, "Well, y'all doing all right? Did you figure out you're not doing too bad?" He showed me his arm, and there was like a giant hole in his arm. Apparently, he did have staph. He said he pulled out what looked like a little onion, but he cut it out with a freaking razor. Yeah. So I end up getting bond. Okay, I end up getting bond, getting out. And you know, this dude, he was my friend. Like, for real, I didn't keep a whole lot of friends in there. Some of the old timers, that's who I kept friends with. But the young people that were doing stupid and just making racket and all that stuff, I just didn't get along with that. Because even though I was younger, you know, I don't know if it's just more mature, just not into it. Maybe I'm just odd, I don't know. I mean, I definitely am odd. But anyway, kept up with him, you know. And every week I'd send him, I sent him like, I think it was like $5 a week. Sometimes I'd send coins, you know, just $5 in change in the mail. I figured, well, that way he's got his coffee cut out for him. It costs $5 for the coffee. His mom was sending him like $60 a month. So, you know, if I helped him cover the coffee, you know, $20 a month, that helped him out. So I kept him up with that the whole time. But he was a habitual complainer. Like he had no shame in like asking for money. And you know, I help somebody out until a point where I feel like I'm like getting used or something, or somebody just being my friend so then they can get something out of me, then it's time to shut that down. Actually, now I've pretty much shut the whole world down until I find out that I'm off of federal probation. I've kind of went into hermit mode just out of like a reflex or whatever, you know, just in case. Like I haven't done anything wrong during this time at all, but like it's like, okay, just make sure nothing by chance happens. But anyway, so I sent him that. He ends up getting out of jail. He did 4 years straight in the regional jail. That's hell on earth, okay? Prison is not as bad as jail. Jail, you're stuck in one room with 50 people. There's 2 showers for 50 people. There's 1 TV for 50 people that people constantly fighting over. There's no windows. There's 2 windows up top that you can't see out of that are frosted, okay? You never go outside at this regional jail. The food, I knew somebody in prison that had been in 22 county jails across the East Coast, a counterfeiter. He said the worst jail food he's ever had was at the regional jail. He had to spend 4 years there because they have a private contract with the DOC. Yeah, body brokers. It's some messed up stuff. It is no place for someone to live for 4 or 5 years straight. Thank the Lord I had federal charges. I never thought I would say that. It's also why I had so much more time, because federal charges just anyway. He did all his time at this regional jail. I cannot imagine 4 years straight at this place. Its time goes by so much quicker. Like, to be honest, 2 years at the low security at Petersburg would be 10 times better than 1 year at this regional jail. And I know that's a big statement, but it absolutely is true. Okay, of course I'd end up doing the year at the jail just because you can't get time back out of your life. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of how bad it sucked, that's what it is. So anyway, he ends up getting out of jail. I know he's big into working out. So what I do is I've been working out tremendously since I got out. I went from like 135 to about 185 in there. Put on about 25 pounds of muscle. The rest of it was fat, okay? Put on a good bit of fat. Probably 25 or 30. I put on a lot in that year. When your body's starved, when you've been on drugs for so long, it's ready to put muscle back on whenever you get back healthy. So you put on muscle quick, and I hadn't really worked out before, so I got what's called newbie gains, and I got pretty stout. You know, I've got a picture on one of them. It's of me in a black and white striped shirt. That was actually at a Halloween party when I was on bond. I figure I'm getting ready to go to prison, so dress up as a inmate would be funny. But anyway, I got up to, I think I was like 210 pounds at that point. Ended up cutting back down, you know, had extra weight on it. But he got out, and, you know, every time I had UFC fights on, I'd invite a few people over, you know, just 4 or 5 people, come sit and watch them, you know, drink beer and watch these fights. He comes over, and he's like, well, let's see what you got, you know, arm wrestle. And I've looked at him kind of like this big undefeatable dude, and I'm like, come on, man, you know, get out of here. And he's like, nah, come on. And I guess it's like, look at it now, you know, I was underestimate myself, but whenever we did this, and then I let go, and I'm like, see, you got me. I could see in his face, if I'd actually tried, I think I might have been able to hang with him. Like, now in retrospect, at the time I just thought, quit messing with me, and I know you're stronger than me. This dude, I seen him literally pick up somebody. He grabbed him. Okay, he grabbed his hand like between their, like through their legs, not between their legs, like grabbing junk or nothing, but like he grabbed his hand under the legs and lifted, shoulder pressed this person up above his head and held him there. He was like 140, 150 pounds. Just picked this dude up, and this dude's flailing, and he threw him, bounced him off the wall, which was kind of a jerk thing to do. But anyway, I gave him a couple dumbbells, like a 40, I think a couple 40-pound dumbbells, and I gave him like half a thing of protein powder and some stuff like that. I'm like, that'll get you started. You can go ahead and get with that. And I think I gave him something else too. Might have like an easy curl bar with some barbells. And he came over for a couple more fights, but eventually, the final time he came over, you know, he's like probably in his mid to late 30s. He's got this young girl with him, and she just looks like she is pissed. And he's messed up. He's on pills. He's drunk. And she's not. She looks like she's dead sober. And he's like cracking jokes that aren't funny, like at her expense and everything else. And that was like, and he ain't even watching the fight. And he's just being stupid. That was the last time I saw him. He ended up going back to prison. I wrote him a letter. You know, just, you know, you become, if you live in a cell with somebody for so long, they end up becoming like a family member. Like, I mean, it's like literally like having a brother. I mean, you're stuck, and especially at the regional jail, even more than a prison, because in the prison at the low security, you're never ever locked down. You can go seeing your cellmate or speaking to your cellmate more than 30 minutes a day there. At the medium security, it's a little bit different. But at the regional jail, during the day, after every meal, they lock you down for an hour and a half. So you're locked down for 4.5 hours out of the day, then 12 hours at night. You're only out of the cell. God, you're only out of the cell for like 7 or 8 hours at the very best. So you end up talking to these people a lot, knowing everything about their family and everything else. And, you know, his family gave him another chance, let him move back in and everything, but he ended up messing up, going back to jail, or going back to prison. And I wrote him a letter. And you know how I said some people have no shame about just asking for money? I told Casey, I got a letter from him before I opened it up. One day, if I can get her to come on here and talk about it, you know, I think the interview with my mom, I thought that was really good. Thought that was great, actually. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Could do that again in the future if you did. But Casey'd be really funny, too, and interesting on some of this. But I told her, she remembers this. I said, you know what? I said, I bet you he asked me for money. I said, if he does, I'm not going to write him a letter back, because I felt like, you know, only reason you wrote me back was so then I'd send you some money. You know, what's happening with me? You ain't worried. Like, what's up, friend? How you been? And I said, if he doesn't ask me for money, I'll send him like $40 probably. Opened the letter, and it was a big sob story about how the whole world's against him. And at the end of the letter, it said, well, you know, times are hard in here. If you could help me out with a little something, I'd really appreciate it. And I was like, I told her before I opened it. I literally told her what it was gonna say before I opened it, and I let her read it, and she was like, you literally predicted that exactly as it happened. I'm like, I know. And there's a point, like, you know, I'll do about anything, like, for somebody like who's trying to help themselves better themselves, but like there's a point, you know, when people are just running themselves in the ground. If I had sent money, it probably would have got spent on the poker table. You know, there's a point where, you know, you're not helping. You know, it's just throwing money in a pit that's burning. It's just burn up. And yeah, so I hadn't talked to him since then. I hadn't really talked to anybody, and I feel really bad about that. One of my very good friend's moms, Kevin Crockett, the incredible leather maker, who feel bad for not talking to him in a good while, but like I said, once I get off this federal probation, I'll be back talking. But I've literally shut myself off from the entire world. I've literally, for the last months, I have shut myself off, gone dark, gone where nobody, you know, and just letting this last little bit. I have not been in trouble since April 9th, 2010, okay? And August of this year makes 5 years on federal probation, which was what I was sentenced to. Actually, they kept me in the halfway house 2 months longer than they were legally allowed to, and the counselor there actually told me, I'm like, look, I only had 4 months halfway house. This is not legal. This is incarcerating me past my... She says, well, I can send paperwork if you want, but to be honest, by the time they get something fixed, you'll already have been here. And I just said, okay, whatever. So probation starts when you get out of the halfway house. So my probation started 2 months later. So technically, I'm not legally supposed to be on probation, but I am abiding by the rules. You know, I'm not gonna, and I'm living the best I can. I'm living, you know, legal and off heroin, and doing it as I should. But because of that, you know, just to make sure, because my mind has anxiety, I'm like, okay, definitely not going to mess up in this last little bit. That's why it's been that way. But anyway, D. Lewis and Terry Lee, thank you for donating to the Junkie with a Monkey Fund. Even if I don't get a monkey, that's just fun to say. Junkie with a monkey. Say it. It's fun. Junkie with a monkey. It's actually the idea, you know, I think the saying, I think I got that off of Jay and Silent Bob. She's like, I'm an international jewel thief who's won in 3 countries. He's like, so what? I'm a junkie with a monkey. And, you know, I think that's where I got it from. But anyway, if you watch this more, I don't ask for likes at the start of this thing, but if you've watched it all the way up until this point, and you think I earned a like, press the like. It actually does help. Thank you for watching. But if you did not, that is 24 minutes and 25 seconds of your life Bamoosh, in which you'll never get back, but I truly hope you did. Y'all have a good one.